Better make this while it's still relevant. I'll be going over a lot of subjects and drawing connections between them, so bear with me. This isn't a this or that issue, this is a this and that and a whole lot of other things issue. Let's start with a subject everyone will understand and everyone is paying attention to. The US presidential election. And what a sad state of affairs it is. We're going to use Sargon's rating scale here, but add the representation of lives for the country for the level that the candidate is at. And the US is on its last lives here, let's make no mistake about that. Now, first I'm going to add my own numbers, because Sargon didn't include Gary Johnson and Jill Stein in this model, who are between like 5 to 8 out of 10. So they're the good, for sure, decent choices. Then we have Bernie Sanders, who is a 1, Donald Trump, who is a 0, and Hillary Clinton, who is a -2. As in, the United States would be on their last life if they were to elect Bernie Sanders as their president, and they would just be one major fuck-up from gaming over. However, it would go straight to the game over screen if Trump was elected as president. And then there's the cunt who would bring so much death and destruction to the nation that it wouldn't just be having 0 lives left. It would be a life sink, as in drawing in the lives from other nations that still had some lives left. There's almost something clinically beautiful to see the pathology of all of this in context. The self-proclaimed greatest / soon-to-be remade greatest nation on Earth is now projecting itself onto the world of being tasked with deciding who it wants to give its highest public authority to. The pathologically lying brain-dead war criminal, or the pathologically lying really good actor playing clown who has you all laughing and fooled. Meanwhile, even though people will acknowledge Bernie was a better choice and the Green and Libertarian candidates are even better still, to the point where they're willing to let Sanders being mass election frauded out of the Democratic Party nomination, meaning the cunt is by any right disqualified from this ritual and cannot be one of the choices to make, not bother them to actually want justice enforced evenly and fairly like everyone in the skeptical community is always crying that they care so much about. Not a single one of them reported on the fact of mass election fraud having already been documented in the current election taking place. Which, hey, I suppose is easy enough to do when the coward himself said that anyone trying to talk about this reality is a coward. Which he did because he was controlled opposition. This was the plan from the start that he was used for. Which is too complicated to go into here, but just be clear, he never planned on trying to win from the start. His sole purpose was to keep people from detracting against the party. Question is, are you going to make their plan a success? And no, that doesn't fucking mean voting for Trump, you idiots! In case you haven't noticed, Trump is still pro-military / war. He wants to put gunships in China's seas. Could you fucking imagine the audacity you people would be saying China would have if China was the one putting gunships on the Pacific coast? He hasn't had his political campaign subverted through mass election fraud, meaning he's part of the power structure's plan. And for all you alpha male worshipping cucks, good Luna, I just made that insult come full circle, lol, who are following Trump because of his alpha male persona, Gary Johnson has something to say to you.
It was kind of a misfire on my part when I called him a pussy. Donald Trump's a pussy. But the point was that, you know what? I've climbed the highest mountain on each of the 7 continents. I'm going to do a 3,000-mile mountain bike ride here, upcoming. Trump's a pussy.
So, the idiocracy continues in the world's most dangerous superpower. What else is happening in the world outside of politics? Well, I'll tell you. Farmer statistics. All over Canada and the US, the number of farmers is declining while the average age of the farmer is increasing because less young people are going into farming, while at the same time human populations continue to grow. If you think you can not worry about something like this because it will never affect you, you're dead wrong. Just think about it. How many people coming out of authority indoctrination facilities, or schools as we call them, today even know how to farm, how to grow food, the basics of how to sustainably feed yourself as a biological life form? 10%? 1%? 0.1%? Take where I live in Canada, for example, on Vancouver Island. Less than 10% of Vancouver Island's food is grown on the island. We only have 2 days' supply of fresh food on Vancouver Island, if the people are shopping normally and not panicked. If panicked, it would be 2 hours. We are 2 days shipping delay away from having mass starvation take place. And this is with all that 70% of farmers we still have right now. As time progresses, this is only going to get worse. And while we're on the subject of farming, GMO and crop resistance. Genetically modified organisms getting into the environment and wiping out native species has been a constant threat they pose ever since their conception. And here's just another example of that. Human mistakes or malice will happen, and now that the FDA has approved this, They have ensured the fate of salmon species to be extinct within 40 years, unless this is reversed before it happens. But after it does, it's too late. And for crops, currently, up to 92% of US corn is genetically engineered, as are 94% of soybeans and 94% of cotton. It has been estimated that upwards of 75% of processed foods on supermarkets' shelves, from soap to soups, crackers, and condiments, contains genetically engineered ingredients. And by the way, the GMO crops are far more susceptible to dying during extreme weather conditions. From this report, myth number 2. GM crops hold the key to climate resilience. Reality. Genetic engineering lags behind conventional breeding in developing plant varieties that can help agriculture cope with climate change. Climate resilience heavily depends on farming practices promoting diversity and nurturing the soil, not on the oversimplified farming system GM crops are designed for. Which, by the way, is something that's happening a lot more now. And what happens when you combine all this with a dwindling farmer population? A recipe for disaster. The food riots have already taken over many other countries around the world, and they're coming to the USA. And on that note of civil unrest, gun control hypocrisy. Ah, yes, that famous old gun control debate. You know, the one where literally everyone, both involved and not involved, is made out to look bad no matter what position they take. So instead of telling you what I think about it and getting the finger pointed at me, I'm going to be the one pointing the finger, hoof, towards the so-called authorities, who are proposing that they should be the only ones deemed worthy enough to keep their firearms. For people to not be hypocritical, they would first need to apply their espoused values to themselves before claiming to have any moral high ground to do so to others. Yet I don't think the politicians are going to be giving up their bodyguards anytime soon. Unlike my country's Green Party leader Elizabeth May, who is able to generate a very clear portrayal of who's on whose side here, with people like her acting as an equal to the people, while the rest of the pigs on animal farms standing upright need their own armed guards to keep themselves and their relatives safe from the people, all while trying to convince you that you should give up yours because your good swine overlords will protect you because they care about you. And to illustrate just how much they really truly care about you, well, I mean, surely it isn't all bad news, right? We can be pretty smart sometimes. I'm sure we can figure out a way to fix all of this. I mean, just look at the explosion of wireless technology. Oh, for Luna's sake! From Curtis Bennett, a chief science officer and adjunct professor with a background in electrical engineering provisions and building engineering, among many other things. The dangers and vulnerability of the smart meter grid can't be overstated. The smart grid is being installed based on safety standards that only consider the end-use devices and not the accompanying wireless relays, routers, collectors, antennas covering thousands of square miles. Making it worse is the ultimate goal of having global smart grid, which means global radiation coverage. There is nothing on the planet electrically compatible with each of the frequencies, and the frequency interactions with everything they hit was left out of the calculations. The frequencies will kill everything living on the planet, radiate buildings, accelerate corrosion of infrastructure, and destroy everything. On a personal note, there is no place to hide, no opt-out, and 100% of the people, regardless of wealth, power, self-importance, their families, etc., will be adversely affected. The frequencies will genetically modified food, kill bees, pollinators, all food, migration, kill fish spawning, and hell is here for what we're doing. But wait, it gets better. From Geoengineering Watch, chemtrails, wireless, and you. Today, EMF experts with the international statue of Dr. George Carlo, Dr. Olio Johansson, Dr. Lee Salford, Dr. Neil Cherry, Dr. Robert Becker, Dr. David Carpenter, and many others are publicly expressing alarm. They warn that continually blanketing our home planet with overlapping, pulsed wireless transmissions never before encountered on Earth will result in a mass brainwiping, a world inability to reproduce, and the extinction of the human race. But hold on, I know what you're thinking. Come on, Brony, this is all just hyperbole, right? I'm fine, I don't need to worry about any of this. Why should I care, eh? Oh. There's lots of other factors contributing to this as well, including everything I've mentioned up to this point. And the other half of the children being born won't be healthy either, just sick with other conditions. I wonder what such a society would look like.
Gender identity, biological sex, gender expression, cisgender, MTF, FTM, MTM, FTF, transgender versus transgendered, trans with an asterisk, transsexual, transvestite, cross-dressing, drag, dysphoria, being gender queer, gender fluid, agender, neutois, gender variant, androgynous, intersex, demigirl, and demiguy. We'll talk about the gender binary and PGPs, and we'll cover identities like third/other gender, bigender, trigender, two-spirit, non-binary, and probably much more.
Literally everyone and everything is problematic.
Everything is sexist, everything is racist, everything is homophobic, and you have to point it all out.
The more you think you cannot be affected, the more likely you are to be affected.
It's really hard being triggered all the time, and I'm not kidding, it's all the time for me at this point. I get dressed in the morning, I'm triggered. I take a shower, I'm triggered. I get in the car, I'm triggered. I go for a walk, I'm triggered. I leave my house, I'm triggered. I sit in my room all day, I'm triggered. I look at my thin, beautiful sisters and I'm triggered, and I just can't get away from it.
Fuck what the American flag stands for! Fuck patriarchy! We don't stand for that shit! Fuck patriarchy! Fuck yeah!
Heteronormativity!
Hell yeah! Heteronormativity!
Fuck machismo!
Gender oppression! Homophobia! Transphobia! Islamophobia! Capitalism! Slavery! Racism! Classism! Elitism! Imperialism! All of it! Burn that shit!
The regressives are just a symptom of a larger world sickness we are facing. Attacking them exclusively is not going to solve anything. But that's just people, right? There will always be really dumb people, and people are limited to what they can do. How much damage could a single stupid person cause in our world, really? Oh, that's right! A single idiot could cause a nuclear war that could instantly obliterate everything on the face of the planet! But come on, IMLI3, now for sure you're being hyperbolic, I hear you saying. Despite all that, there's never been a point in history where human civilization has been completely wiped out, so it's not going to happen. Not now or ever.
One of the things that has changed since I wrote Fingerprints of the Gods 20 years ago is that today I have a smoking gun. When I wrote Fingerprints of the Gods, when I published it in 1995, it was obvious there had been a cataclysm at the end of the last ice age, somewhere between 12 and 13,000 years ago. But I was sticking my neck out, suggesting that that had happened. There wasn't the hard scientific evidence in support of that idea. And what's happened in the last 20 years is that that hard scientific evidence has come in, and we now have a group of major scientists, more than 30 of them, working on this problem from all around the world. And what they've shown is that the North American ice cap was hit by fragments of a giant comet, and that this caused a global cataclysm, an extinction level event. The mega mammals like the mammoths and the woolly rhinos went extinct at that time. And I believe the evidence strongly supports the notion that we lost an advanced civilization at that time, which has been remembered in myths and memories ever since.
Wow. Bet you didn't see that one coming, did ya? Okay, so what am I trying to tell you with all this? That we've got a lot of serious problems that need addressing right now, otherwise human civilization will be in jeopardy, right? Wrong. I'm trying to tell you, we're fucked. Our planet has lost half of its wildlife in the past 40 years, because we're in the middle of the 6th great mass extinction event on our planet right now. We're going to have 10 feet of sea level rise in the next 10 years, because we're in the middle of a runaway greenhouse effect, right now. And just how bad of a runaway warming are we facing? We are now past 400 parts per million of CO2 in our atmosphere. If you're smart enough to use a computer to watch this video, I shouldn't need to explain to you why that's not good. And we are now going to have 10 degrees Celsius rise in the next 10 years. And pro tip, life will be dead long before that much warming takes place, meaning we have only a few years of stability left, at best, to do something before the collapse reaches our part of the world, like it has in so many other places already. Things are bad, and getting worse. I'm not going to make a happy ending for this video, because that would be lying, and I don't do that. However, and this is the only thing I actually believe in real life, it is not hopeless. I believe our species can still work to change our future for the better, if only we fucking try. So here's a list of things that need to be done, in order of importance. Number 1, stop geoengineering. Go watch my previous video if you don't know anything about that. How long can you hold your breath? Thought so. And every breath you take, no matter where you are in the world, has been saturated with toxic heavy metals and untold other number of harmful chemicals well above even the government's safety standards. Geoengineering is throwing the planet's climate system out of control and rapidly killing everything on the planet. If it isn't stopped and stopped soon, then nothing else will matter. Fortunately, geoengineeringwatch.org has a team of pro bono lawyers taking legal action in Canada and the US. The lawsuits have already been served, but they need your help and support to spread the word about this. Number 2, grow organic. Either buy local organic food or grow your own local organic food. Does anyone remember Victory Gardens? Well, we need a new wave of Save the Planet gardens, because we have lost at least half of the biomass that once existed on this planet. Biomass is a heavy contributor to the regulation of our climate system. And according to the scientist Paul Beckwith,
this isn't very smart. So what do? This has disrupted the ecological balance. We've lost 50% of the total living biomass on Earth. So it reduces the size of the carbon cycle. There's a reduction in the amount of carbon that we can transfer out of the living carbon cycle into the long-term carbon cycle. So we've lost the resilience of the planet's biosphere to recover from shocks. For example, an asteroid strike could easily wipe us out in our weakened state, whereas if we restored biomass, we would be much more resilient to surviving such an event. Same with the large-scale volcanic event. The population explosion of 7.3 billion, highly intelligent on an individual basis, but obviously dumb as a sack of hammers on a collective basis to have polluted our atmosphere and oceans to lead us into this precarious situation. Acidification of the oceans, multiple positive feedbacks, which are bad feedbacks. They make things go faster, act on each other to accelerate warming. Okay, so we've got to get this resilience back. If we increase biomass on the planet, we increase our resilience a huge amount. So summarizing the scale of the problem, these numbers are all in gigatons. Basically, the excess carbon in the atmosphere by 2040 is expected to be on the order of 560 gigatons, and that's comprised of extra extra carbon in the ocean and in the atmosphere, and carbon that we're committed to adding. In terms of the biomass, 5,000 years ago to present day, we've lost about half of the biomass. Okay, what those numbers will be in 2040, we'll see. So if you take those numbers, that's about 4,000 gigatons. So 15% of 4,000 is 600. So if we restore about 15% of the lost biomass, this amount, 600 gigatons, that will basically cover the excess carbon and return us to about 280 ppm.
growing gardens everywhere and becoming self-sufficient is something everyone in the world, from cities to the wilderness, can and must do. Not only will it help save our climate system, but it has a ton of other major benefits like food security. It's good for your health and makes healthy food. Weakens economic stresses. Helps end world hunger. Like, seriously, how is everyone not already doing this? What in Luna's name are you doing with your life? Number 3, no more nukes. Self-explanatory. Number 4, get rid of EMFs. Eliminate all blanket wireless radiation-emitting devices. Our stationary technology can be easily wired. Get rid of all unnecessary sources of radiation. Number 5, don't get vaccinated. Now hold on there, you little piece of shit faggot. Before you go typing up a comment trying to defend vaccines, have you seen Vaxxed? The new documentary about a top-level government scientist whistleblower from the CDC, the US Center for Disease Control and Prevention, revealing 10,000 fucking pages detailing a mass cover-up of damage from vaccines? If the answer is no, then go watch that before commenting. All vaccines are unsafe. Do not get them. Also, don't drink fluoridated water, for fuck's sakes, people. And to close it all out here, number 6, never Hillary or Trump. Last US presidential election, there were so many of you people who became disillusioned to the facade that is the US political system. Yet somehow, yet again, so many of you went back to supporting the same two parties. Even when everyone knows that those candidates are in an all-time low approval rating. And don't even get me started on how low Congress's approval rating is. Show the establishment you mean business and overhaul these corrupt fucks. So, I hope you found this informative, and I hope you share it with as many people as you can, while there's still time.